On this episode, we speak about how to be yourself. It may seem strange, but a lot of people have difficulty showing up as themselves. Tune in as we go over some key points in being authentic and true to who you are. Get tips and tools that will aid you in becoming more of yourself, right here on LifeClub.
I'm Tashima Jones. Welcome to LifeClub. I genuinely believe personal development unlocks the door to the abundant and wonderful life we all already have. I also believe we must be intentional about seeking out that life in order to find and fulfill it. I am so grateful your journey of discovery has led you all the way here. Let's keep moving forward together. Once again, welcome to Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Hello, beautiful people. This is Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Super excited, as always, to be rocking with you. We are going to speak about how to be more of yourself. One of the greatest challenges we face is something as natural as being ourselves. Just think about that for a minute. How hard should it be to be yourself? But far too many people are aching within due to not fully walking in their truth. Remember, we are human beings and not human doings. And the importance in that statement is that we get it twisted at times, thinking our many works and busyness makes us who we are. And contrary to popular belief, you are not your job, your degree, your car, or lack thereof, or any other thing you do or possess. You are you. So I just want to unpack this reality of the you living on the inside of you. I believe it was Miles Davis who once said, sometimes it takes a really long time to sound like yourself. And the same is true for us in our everyday lives and on this journey of life. So I'm hoping to add to that growth in your life today. So for starters, our key words are authentic, confidence, you, aka being, and present. So I'm going to start with this idea of authenticity or being authentic. It is of undisputed origin. It is genuine. It is the principal thing. And to be confident is to have full trust in, and you/being is really this concept of your presence, of being I am, of existing in life. And the same is true for this idea of being present. It's to be connected to the very moment that you exist in. So I'm just going to take it all the way back to our first keyword of authenticity. You have to understand that nobody can co-sign on your authenticity. The root of being authentic is simply being yourself. And that is so tied into this concept of confidence, because if confidence is to fully trust in, you have to be authentic in order to trust in a thing. A lot of us are walking around in self-betrayal, aka you are playing yourself on a regular basis. And what I think of, when I think of this concept of playing yourself or self-betrayal, as I like to call it, it's simply you pretending to be someone that you aren't, even if you are pretending to be a good Samaritan or this happy-go-lucky person. Some people pretend like they're actually a little bit more gangster than they really are. So when we recognize that authenticity and confidence go hand in hand, we are able to truly see this concept of being who you were created to be. Now, the thing about being confident is this concept of trust. But if you aren't being your true self, then you won't believe yourself. Yeah, let's just take a deep breath on that. A lot of us have trust issues, not because of the things that other people have done to us, but because of the lies that we've told to ourselves. And we started to mistrust our heart, and we started to mistrust our decision making, and we started to mistrust our paradigm and our mentality because we've lied to ourselves so much that we have lost trust, aka confidence, in ourselves. So in order to be confident, you must be authentic. You must be the undisputed original you. You must be genuine. To dig a little deeper into this concept of being authentic, we stumble upon this concept of being transparent. Now, if you know, like, this is one of my favorite words on LifeClub. This idea of being transparent is being so clear that light can pass through it. That's what transparency is. You would be able to hold up this thing, this object, this material, and see through it, shining light through it. And we all know that light is wisdom, light is enlightenment, light is truth, light is freedom. So in order for us to gain this confidence to be ourselves, we must be authentic. And to be authentic, we must be transparent. We must not only walk in our truth, but also be open to discovering our truth, because a lot of us are living in false truths, things that we have become to believe in. Like, you can believe a lie and call it truth. So we have to be available and make ourselves available and allow ourselves to really strip down to this sense of transparency. And I always say the weirdest thing is that when you can't even look yourself in the mirror, when you can't even be real with yourself, it's the oddest thing, but it's the greatest thing that we can ever do. Because once we start to strip down and delayer and take off all the makeup and take up all of the extra layers and really allow ourselves to be transparent with ourselves and, of course, with spirit, we are then able to tap in to the essence of who we truly are. So again, confidence is to have full trust in it. And in order to have confidence in a thing, it must be authentic. It must be genuine. It must be an undisputed origin. And in order to be authentic, we have to be transparent. And to be transparent is to allow a light to be so clear, to be so bare, to be so open that we allow light to pass through us. And in light, there is truth and there is freedom. So when we go through those layers of truth, when we go through those layers that are all connected, we are then able to be. And oh my goodness, that just felt so good. We are able to literally be, to be present, to be real, to be ourselves. And this concept of being is truly life. It is truly existing, and so much deeper than, some people say, oh, are you living or are you just existing? To exist is a really big deal. It's a really, really big deal, and we don't want to minimize that. Again, we can betray ourselves so long that we start to take a lie for the truth. But when we really break down these realities about what it is to truly exist, to truly be present, to truly be I am, it is something that seems so subtle, but it is so amazing. So once again, we have just gone over some few keywords, which is the first one is being authentic, or this concept of authenticity. And that is to be genuine, to be an undisputed original. Yes. Second word up is confidence. And that is to have full trust in. And remember, in order to have full trust in a thing, it must be a genuine thing. And to be genuine, you have to have this concept of transparency, being so bare, so open, so stripped down to the very essence of who you are, so that light can get through and so that truth can get through. And then we find ourselves in this state of being, in this state of abiding in truth, in this state of what I like to call I am. I am. Yes. That feels so, y'all should try saying that. I am. Don't even add your name. Just say, I am. Feels really good. So now what I wanted to go over when we get to those those spaces and places in our lives is what actually happens when we allow ourselves to become transparent. And this is what I call spiritual rehab, where it's like you are being stripped away and unlearning everything that you thought was true, those lies that you believed and took as truth. You are being stripped away of those things, and it hurts a lot. And it doesn't hurt in a sense where there's pain being inflicted upon you as much so as it is taking the pain out of you. When you think about somebody who has been addicted to drugs and they go to a rehabilitation center and they no longer have this drug that they have craved and that they have basically lived off of for however long they've been addicted, when you take that drug away from that person, it is a painful transition to watch. It's almost as if you want to give them the drug so they can just chill out and just relax. But it is in the stripping away of that drug that hurts so much, because it's the pain coming out of you versus pain going into you. So spiritual rehab, it's so important, so vital for us to really position ourselves in this space where we can allow the pain to come out of us, allow the lies to come out of us, allow the trauma and the disappointment and the lack and all of these things that made up our paradigm to be drained out of us. And at that very same time, there's goodness being spoken into us. There is love. And that becomes clearer and clearer the more we unlearn the distractions of the world that we have experienced so far in our lives. We become clear, we receive clarity, but it is in that space of transparency that we have to have the courage to, what I like to say, stay in the classroom, because you will realize that your life will go in cycles over and over and over again if you try to skip class and leave a little too soon. So once again, when we speak about this process of being transparent, it is really allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to not only hear the truth, but to empty yourself of the lies. And a lot of times, going back to our 1 minute of meditation, we find so much comfort in that pain, and we find so much comfort in that sadness and in that despair, and literally in the lies that we have told ourselves or those that we have believed from other people that we don't even want to leave. Sometimes we'd rather stay in the pain than to go through the transition of being relieved of it. And that is your first point of transparency. It is being honest with yourself, even if it's for one moment, to say, I am hurting and I don't want to hurt anymore. And if you just keep repeating that to yourself over and over and over again, it will take root. And then that process will step up a notch and go to another level of finally unlearning the things that you have learned, and you also start to uncover the treasures that's on the inside of you already. Remember, I always say this concept of discovering something is an idea of something already being in place, and you just have to dust it off. And that's spiritual rehab. It's literally dusting off all of the muck and the mirror that has grown onto you over time, whether it's, through seasons of neglect, or maybe not having enough, or maybe something happening with someone that oftentimes other people's pain can become part of us. So we have to be mindful, and we also have to be truthful in this space of transparency. Once again, we are speaking about how to be more of yourself. And the reality of it is that you can't be yourself if you don't know yourself. Oh, let's just take a deep breath on that. That felt so good. You cannot be yourself if you do not know yourself. So we have to go through this process of transparency. We have to go through this process of being real with ourselves. We have to go through this process of being so transparent that we allow truth and that we allow light in. So just to recap our first half, we are speaking about how to be yourself. It's a very simple yet complex reality that so many of us are fighting to be ourselves, or fighting to even know who we are. And the reality of the matter is that without knowing who you are, you cannot be yourself. And without starting the process of discovering who you are, you will never know who you are. Some of our key words from this installment of Life Club have been authentic, and that is being genuine. We also talked about confidence and this idea of having full trust in. And when you have authenticity, you can fully trust in that thing. And in order to really be authentic, you have to be transparent. And that is being so clear, so open, so vulnerable that you allow light, aka wisdom, to pass through you. And then you get to the sense of being. And if anybody has ever gone through a season of truly discovering themselves for where they are in this moment, because I truly believe growth is never ending. But when you get to the core of who you are and you're able to trust who you are on the inside, and you're able to trust your paradigm and how you see life and how you see yourself and people, you have this feeling, this knowing of being. You just are. And that's the sweet spot of life. To be is the sweetest thing ever, because so much more makes sense. There's so much clarity in that. There's no more pretending. There's no more second guessing. And there's really this sense of peace when we are fully being, when we are fully existing in the present moment. And the reality of that is this concept of like, you always are. Like, you always are. And too often we live way in the past or too far ahead in the future that we don't recognize, like, we are here, we are now, we always are, because tomorrow is. It's like there's really no truth in this concept of future. Again, when you get out of the 5 sensory realm and you really start to understand this concept of time and all of these things, like, you cannot exist in the future. You are now. And just like a seed, like that, there's a tree inside of a seed. Like, the seed is the tree already. Yeah. Let's just really take a deep breath on that. The seed is literally the tree already. And I think that really causes us to stumble sometimes when we get too caught up in, again, not necessarily being, but doing, and depending on manifestations of our hopes and dreams to define who we are. No. Like, it's cool being a seed. It's a right. Like, it's a big deal. So you have to be content in that space in order to truly evolve from that space. Being okay with where you are now and understanding that where you are isn't who you are, and what you have isn't who you are, and what you're doing isn't who you are. All of those things are simply a manifestation of the blessing, of you producing, of you increasing, of you being fruitful, of you ruling a certain space in a certain domain. Those are just the things those are just the fruit of who you are. But who you are is a seed. And that's really amazing. So you have to be okay with that. And again, I feel strongly like a lot of us aren't content with small beginnings. A lot of us aren't content with simply being ourselves. We want bells and whistles and ornaments and this whole like parade to really be confident and to be okay with who you truly are. So that's one of the things that we have to get over. We have to get over this concept of being and doing and having. We have to really get clarity on that. We have to be okay with being, because out of that being comes all of these other amazingly wonderful things. So when we get to this space of being, and again, that comes with accepting the being. And that's a big deal. To accept a thing doesn't necessarily mean to settle for a thing. We accept really great gifts. You are that great gift. Like, you have to understand that. You have to be okay with that concept. And once we get to that space of accepting who we are, the being of who we are, and I think when you find out who you are, you will be more willing to accept it. Just have a hashtag Selah right there. So we get to this space of acceptance. And then we are able to AKA reintroduce ourselves first to yourself. Now, I mentioned this concept of pretending to act as if a thing has already happened. To pretend something is to service it before it actually happens. It's to make believe as if it's happening. But there's this difference between pretending to be yourself and practicing being yourself. And that's what I want to get into a little bit more, is this concept of practice being yourself. Now, take a few areas where you know you have betrayed, aka played yourself, and then be truthful. Show up as you. This can be as simple as not laughing at a harsh joke amongst friends or pursuing a spirit-led desire. So I'll let you know what I mean by that. So years ago, I would sit amongst people and who may have been talking about other people. And I wouldn't necessarily add to the conversation with words, but if there was something that they deemed as funny being said about another person, I'd chuckle a little, knowing inside of myself that that was a really whack thing to say and a really whack thing to laugh at. But again, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't confident. I was not being my authentic self because I had not gotten to that space of transparency, aka letting truth and light come in. So I would sit there and I would laugh with other people, knowing inside that it didn't feel right. It wasn't genuine. It wasn't who I really was. So once I started to practice being myself, I would be in that same situation, but I wouldn't laugh about it. Because I truly believe the more of yourself you are in a room filled with other people, the more you allow other people to be themselves. And sometimes you not laughing is just a reflection of how whack they are conducting themselves. And it wasn't even, it's not that I had to say anything. I just chose not to laugh about something that I didn't think was funny. And that is what I consider practicing being yourself. Think about certain areas of your life or times or relationships or situations that you find yourself in on a regular basis and start to show up as yourself. And little by little by little, you will not only start to build that confidence of who you are on the inside, you are also able to show up as that person with other people. Once again, the more of you are, the more you allow other people to become, the more growth that you will give somebody indirectly simply by walking into a space and being yourself. So practice being yourself. Practice is literally how we learn. It is consistently showing up and doing a thing until it becomes a part of your consciousness. You have to practice, aka just be intentional about showing up as yourself. Remember, this is after this whole process of being unlearning certain things and emptying out the trash, if you will, and being filled up with love, with life, with happiness, with joy, with truth about who you are and the space that you hold on this beautiful earth. So practice being yourself. And in order to do that, you must be intentional about it. And you must be mindful of how you conduct yourself in front of other people. And first, I truly believe you have to practice in quiet, like by yourself. Whether that's just being honest in your journal entries, or it's when you're scrolling on social media, or when you're posting on social media, like start to show up as yourself and let that bleed over into the conversations you have and into the spaces and places that you occupy. So first, we reintroduce ourselves. And this can be like just simply writing a personal mission statement, a personal statement about yourself. And you don't have to read it to anybody else except for you. Because that's one of the things, like personal development and becoming more confident and showing up as yourself is really an inside job. Because if you cannot be you by yourself and with spirit, it's going to be much harder to do that around other human beings. So start to convince yourself about who you are. Start to believe yourself when you say who you are. So I truly believe that in order to reintroduce yourself, it's a really, really great idea to write down a personal mission statement. My name is, this is who I am, and really focus on those internal treasures and not what you have or what you want to become or what you want to own or who you want to marry, where you want to live and what you want to drive. Really focus on the internal. I always tell the story about Aunt Harriet Tubman and this vision I had when I was in prayer meditation, and she came and asked me, "What do you want in your room, child?" And I started naming all these other material things and possessions, and she continued to ask the question. And every time she asked, it was a little bit more stern until I really got the idea of the room that she spoke of was my heart. And the things that I really, truly desired was love, peace, joy, happiness, contentment, clarity, feeling just good. Just how I wanted to conduct myself internally. And that really added so much to my journey of personal development, because it caused me to see myself as this temple, and the things that I wanted to decorate that temple with were invisible, yet they were so much more powerful than anything that we could ever see. So I truly believe writing down a personal statement about who you are. Remember, abstaining from the things that you want to have. Although having things is awesome, but those things do not make you. Remember, you cannot find life in a lifeless things. We do not feed our plants soda, because that does not bring forth life. And you are the same. You are a living being, a spiritual being. And the only thing that truly gives you life is things that are filled with life. They are not man-made. So reintroduce yourself by writing your personal statement. And then we're going to go into basically practicing this concept of being yourself. And remember, start to look at first, you start by yourself. You start with those quiet moments that you set aside to just sit and to just meditate, or just to journal, or to have this personal time alone with you and just spirit, and start to journal about the things that you like to change, the areas where you like to mature, and the things that you want to throw away, and the things that you want to keep, because we're not, all so bad. There's some good things in us, but there's so much more to gain. So really being mindful of that by practicing in your silent time. And then as you start to build this confidence, you can then step out and be more of yourself in the spaces and places that you occupy with other human beings. It's such a beautiful thing to really be yourself, because then there's no worry of rejection. There is no fear of man not wanting or liking you. So much falls away when you start to become not only more of yourself, but confident in the self that you are. And then the next thing was, I wanted us to start to write the story of the real you. So you're going through this journey of enlightenment, and you're finding and discovering all of these amazing things about yourself. I want you to start to write the story of the real you. And remember, that story, you're probably not going to get the end of that story. I'm just being honest. But the things that you pick up in #spiritual rehab, the truth and the light that you start to discover, start to write those things down. Start to journal those things. Start to make markers along your journey about what it is that you are discovering about yourself. Oftentimes, we are trying to share ourselves with somebody else, or trying to get somebody else to want us, or trying to get to know somebody else when we don't even know ourselves, the person that we are with 24/7. Let's just take a selah on that one. It is so important, so vital for us to start to see ourselves, because the truth of the matter is this: our eyes are not facing us. You have never really seen your face. You have seen a reflection of your face, but you have never seen with your own eyes your face. And I think this is something that I think that's a really good thing, because you probably it's not healthy to just look at yourself all day. But I truly believe that this pushes us to really start to dig in and start to understand who we truly are. It pushes us to see the inside of us and not just our flesh, and not just the five sensory self and the five sensory space that we occupy. So it really pushes us to dig into the spiritual truths of who we genuinely are. And sometimes it seems like it makes it more difficult to get to know yourself, but in all truth, it's pushing us to this space to do the life work to really discover the internal and the inner being. So start to jot down these truths about yourself and start to build this relationship with yourself. Establishing a healthy relationship with yourself is so important, and it's so vital, because oftentimes a lot of us don't even want to be with ourselves. And that's why we want to be at everybody's event, and we try to push ourselves so far away from ourselves, because number one, I think, is that we don't know ourselves. And then the other concept is that we don't like ourselves. But I truly believe that if you truly knew yourself, you would actually like yourself. I think you would. So once again, some tips and tools on how to fully be yourself. First, we spoke about reintroducing yourself to yourself by writing a personal statement about who you are. Second, we wanted to practice being ourselves, first in private and then in the public. And I think the more you do it privately, the more comfortable and the more confident you become doing it publicly. We want to write the story of the real us, aka just jot down and journal all of the things that are being whispered to you through the spirit about who you were created to be. It is so important, so vital for us to be in tune with spirit, because you were made, you were created, and there is so much more to learn about yourself. I don't believe in self-made anything. But that's a whole nother concept, a whole nother show. But I truly believe that it is important for us to tap into spirit in order to find these truths. So we go into writing that story about the real us. Now, we will get to a space in our lives when we start to discover this ease of just being. And when we start to discover that, I truly believe everything that we're searching for on the outside opens up for us. That felt good. I truly, truly believe that, because more important than the prosperity of your external things is the prosperity of your soul. Because even if you are blessed to touch and taste the things in this world, if you aren't connected internally, you either won't enjoy those things or you'll lose them just as soon as you receive them. So again, we have to become more of ourselves. And a lot of people misconstrue this concept of being AKA real when they're being just rude. And being yourself is just this subtle breeze, honestly. Because again, we are spirit beings, and when you start to become more of yourself, you start to stray away from conflict, and so many things that mattered before don't even matter anymore. So I truly believe that doing these things by going through what I call spiritual rehab and being transparent, becoming authentic, becoming more confident in who you are, and arriving to this space of simply being, you are then able to move forward in the life that was truly created for you. And that life is abundant, and that life is wealthy, and that life is prosperous. But again, if you aren't who you truly are, your blessings don't even know where to find you. They're like, well, I know this blessing has Tashima's name on it, but I can't find her. I don't know where she is because she's hashtag playing herself, not being her full self, not truly showing up and arriving as who you were created to be. Thank you so much for rocking with me on another installment of Life Club. Once again, we were speaking about being ourselves. I want to leave you with one thought, maybe two. So, one truth is that you should rather be rejected for who you truly are than loved for who you are not. And I think a lot of the struggle that we have with being ourselves is trying to appease other people. And we really have to let that concept go, because one thing I realized is that the more of myself I became, the more I attracted the people who were supposed to be in my life. So you have to really let this concept and even this fear of rejection go. Again, stripping down to just being your transparent and authentic self. You have to trust that being you is much more important than being liked by other people. So that's one thing. It's really making peace with this concept of being rejected for being yourself rather than loved for being someone else. And then last but not least, it is truly walking in the shoes that were created for you. I think too often we're trying to live the life of another person, or we're trying to live our lives based on what other people expect of us. But there is no sweeter spot than simply being who you were created to be. I'm going to leave it right there. We're going to put those 3 dots right there. Once again, this is Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Thank you so much for rocking with me. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were here with me. And for that, I am truly, truly grateful. Remember, you can find more articles, videos, all that good stuff on tashimajones.com. You can also find out how to join a Life Club. Remember your greatness. Talk soon.
I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.